Hello and welcome! My name is Lord Revonworc, and this is pretty much the first time I have tried anything like this, so you know what? Let's just do this. So ideally by the time this video goes out, it will be the 28th of July, 2014, the Centennial anniversary of the start of the First World War. And being a bit of a history buff, I feel it's important to commemorate that anniversary in some way, and I felt what better way to do that than a historical recreation of it on Civilization V, using mods to put in some of the belligerent nations into the game. You can see the list here. I even put in Soviet Union and Australia. I can explain why later. That's for little historical things. Technically, they both were belligerents in the war. I'll explain it later. All the victory types except for time, because that sucks. Pangea plus map. You know what? Let's just get started. And I will be playing as Serbia, if that wasn't already obvious. The reason being, of course, that Serbia was the first country to be invaded. So let's talk about the First World War. It started in the summer of 1914 with the Austro-Hungarian invasion of Serbia following the assassination of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand Habsburg-Lorraine by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip in Sarajevo. The initial invasion caused multiple strings of alliances to be pulled, which wound up pitting half of Europe against the other half. The Entente powers, which most famously included the British Empire and France, defeated the Central powers, which included Germany and Austria-Hungary. The victory saw the major Entente powers taking everything from the Central powers, which destroyed Germany, while minor Entente powers, like Italy and Japan, remained resentful for not being granted concessions they wanted. These conditions left behind would result in the Great Depression and the Second World War. Simply put, it was kind of a big deal. But let us get started. Oh, but first thing I always do whenever doing a Civ game, straight up the bat, before I do anything, and save the game, so if I ever decide I want to, I can return right back to this starting point. Down the city of Belgrade, get our Kefalija, which I'm not sure what it does. I probably should have tried playing as this Civ before doing a fucking series on it. But let's just get started. A little bit of early exploration with the warrior. And first thing I'm going to build in Belgrade. And I know a lot of people like to start out with a scout for exploration. I'm going for a monastery. Or, not a monastery, a monument. I'm going with a monument. And I'm heading towards writing because I want the Great Library. The Great Library is very good. So, playing with 16 players. I actually felt I needed to turn down the amount of city-states so there would be more room for us, because we're on a Pangea map. Although it's Pangea Plus, so ideally most of them should not be spawning on the actual continent. Ooh, nice ruins. The very first game I played on Brave New World, I found a ruins... let's just have him sleep. On the third turn, which gave me a settler, which means I was able to build my second city on the third turn. Which was pretty great. Not going to lie. Just put it there, and 2 cities 3 turns into the game. Extra population. Not bad early game. Now, I was saying earlier about the reasons I had for putting in the Soviet Union in Australia. First of all, having the Soviet Union in there, you might have noticed I also had the Empire of Russia, which was a mod, because I had 2 Russias. This was because during the First World War, that was when the Russian Revolution started. So, as a result, you had the Tsarists fighting communists during the First World War. So that's why I put in the Soviet Union in there, and that's why I have 2 Russias. Which should be interesting because, first of all, they're going to share most of the same city list. Although, I suspect that the Soviet Union will probably call their St. Petersburg Leningrad instead. And since I put the Soviet Union's... What? Oh! Looks like we're meeting someone. The United States.
The people of the United States of America welcome you.
You're gonna have to forgive the low frame rates. I'm playing on a laptop.
I'm listening.
Yeah, nothing really to trade, but I'm glad I met you, George Washington of America. So what was I saying? Right, about Russia. The Soviet Union should have Leningrad instead of St. Petersburg, which, as a result, I think it might actually become the Soviet Union's capital, because I put Tsarist Russia first on the list, so they're probably going to wind up with Moscow as their capital. Okay, so that's completed, and the next thing I should work on... Just a minute. Worker in 12 turns, next policy in 6 turns. Yeah, I could get a worker pretty quickly. I'm going to build a warrior instead. Or, no, not a warrior. Get me... Yeah, warrior. For some reason I was thinking I could get the granary before researching pottery. So... yeah, and the reason I put Australia into the game, and they're the only British Empire realm I put into the game other than the British Empire itself. And the reason for that was because of the Red Baron. Now, the name probably seems familiar. If you've ever watched the Peanuts, you'll recognize that as the person that Snoopy is always pretending to be is the Red Baron. And he was a really famous fighter pilot Looks like we found Washington again. First we met the man, then the city. And he was a really famous German fighter pilot.
Shall the clay say to him that fashioneth it? What
During the
makest
First
thou?
World War. And he died in, I believe it was the last year of the war, was shot down by anti-aircraft guns used by the Australians fighting in the war. And that's why Australia is in the game, but none of the other British Empire realms like Canada, India, New Zealand, South Africa, none of those are in there. Just Australia, because they killed the Red Baron. So they deserve it. Poetry is done, so we're going for writing. I want the Great Library. So, I don't think I actually addressed this yet, but let's actually talk about the game we're playing. Civilization V. Now, I myself highly enjoy strategy games, and the Civ series is a well-known 4X game. The 4X game series. I keep tripping over my own words. You're going to see me do that a lot. I don't think before I speak. Anyways, 4X is explore, expand, exterminate, exploit, in no particular order. I think there is an order that those go in, and I don't think I got the right order. No, I'm actually pretty close to the coastline. Okay, why don't we start bringing you back? 12 turns. Well, it took 12 turns to get out that far, so that makes sense. Liberty. I love the Liberty tree because it gives you free worker, free settler, production boost, one culture in every city, and if you build a lot of cities, that really adds up. There's this for reducing the culture cost cities increase, and it's just all around a nice tree, and as you can see, once you get everything, you get a free great person, and that is actually really nice. Because oftentimes that's far quicker for me to get a great person than actually building up the faith base. Okay, so let's build a shrine and then a granary. But once we unlock the Great Library, we're building that immediately. Okay, new warrior. Let's get you scouting. Gonna need to research what this Kefalegia does. Actually, you know what? You know what? I can do that right now. Units. Kefalegia. Okay, can improve mines. +1 gold and +1 production on top of the original mines yield. Serbian nobility was a privileged order or class of Serbia in the Middle Ages and early modern period of greatest. Okay, so basically they make improvements better, specifically the mines, which is wonderful considering that we have no hills in Belgrade. Well, there are some right here. We'll expand into that eventually. Okay. Next turn.